Hey,
All right, so in a few minutes, we should be it should be stated that we are live.
right.
hmm All right, so welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Memories of Our Music, episode 4, Arknolia and the Doctor. Me and Arknolia Stroke of being here, live here on each other's channel, my channel and Arknolia's channel here. And still discussing our music memories which are going on right now. And basically, we've been speaking about the music scene for the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and now we're kind of like shifting in towards the 1950s, in between the swing era and between the start of the rock and roll genre. So, and right now, what we're doing is we're discussing everything except the before rock and roll was set into place up there with the Bill Haley and the Comets, Richie Valens, Buddy Holly. We'll take a look at that scene prior to the rock and roll scene developing, believe it or not, folks, because I believe it was a small gap between
Yeah,
that.
because the rock and roll didn't start till early 50's, but
Yeah,
it didn't start right at 1950.
yeah,
What we had at that time was generally four genres before rock and roll, which was pop, country,
yeah,
rhythm and blues,
yeah,
and folk.
yeah, yep.
Now,
And yes, go
right,
ahead.
among the pop musics, we had Nat King Cole,
Yes,
Rosemary Clooney, Perry
yep,
Como,
yes,
Dean Martin,
yes,
Tony Bennett, Peggy Lee,
yes,
Ella Fitzgerald,
yes, hmm
Johnny Mathis,
yeah,
Andy Williams, Frank Sinatra,
mhm,
Frankie Lane, Patti Page, Teresa Brewer, the Ames brothers, the Andrews sisters,
hmm
the Four Aces, Doris Day, and Pat Boone. Do you know of any others you can think of off the top of your head?
Well, I think it pretty much covered it all. I think you also got to forget the country artists like the very young Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Johnny Horton, artists like, oh yeah, Hank Williams Sr.
Gene Autry,
Yes,
Conway Twitty,
that's right.
Patsy Cline,
Yes,
June Carter Cash.
yes. Before she became Mrs. Johnny Cash, there, to keep that in mind.
Right. Then in rhythm and blues, we had Frankie Lymon and the Teenagers,
Yes, right.
Sam Cooke, who
Yep.
also actually ventured into rock and roll,
Yes.
the Orioles, Ray Charles, who ventured into rock and roll, and a little country.
hmm
In fact, the story I heard once was he wanted to be a country singer, and then somebody told him, "Hey, Ray, you're black. You can't be a country singer." He's, okay. But he went ahead and did country songs.
Yep.
Fats Domino, the Ravens, the Penguins, the Crows, the Platters, Billy Ward and his Dominoes, James Brown,
Oh yeah.
Lloyd Price, Bobby Day. Now, among those people, of course, we know Nat King Cole for Ramblin' Rose, and he
Yep.
had a couple others, but that was his biggie.
Yeah, it was along with Unforgettable.
Yep.
That's right. And to keep in mind, folks, there's a compilation. I think I mentioned this before that prior to him becoming the well-respected crooner that he was also a part of a jazz trio, the Nat King Cole Jazz Trio, I think it was called.
Right. A lot of these people are going to span several things, but it's that's the beauty of this kind of thing.
hmm
Perry Como, the one song I remember by him was "Catch a Falling Star."
Yeah.
That was a biggie.
Yes. Of course, Billy Vaughn herself, she was a well-known, respected singer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Then you had Dean Martin had a ton of hits.
hmm
His most famous probably was "Everybody Loves Somebody,"
Yep.
but he also had Houston, uh, "Send Me the Pillow You Dream On."
Yeah.
Oh, what else? There were a lot of them.
Oh yeah.
He was prolific. He had a lot of good ones, and of
Oh
course he
yeah.
had his variety show in the '60s.
Yes, I remember it. Plus, the movies he did with Jerry Lewis.
Yeah,
back then. Yeah, until eventually, for some reason, what was one
I'm
thing
not
I
real
couldn't
sure what the
about
story was there.
how they broke up. That was the whole
Right.
thing there.
They were highly successful, but the impression or the thing I heard was Jerry Lewis thought he was bigger and was going to be a star without Dean.
Yeah,
And as it turns out, Dean did just fine.
yeah, both of them did pretty well when you think about it. There,
Yeah, actually, they did.
yeah. In fact, I remember reading this story not too long ago in some tabloid magazine that I guess I guess Jerry joined Dean on stage one time, and they had a little reminiscence. Well, I guess it was during one of Martin's performances, and I guess one person's I guess it was either Jerry or Dean, and I guess why did they break up? You know, and I guess he couldn't agree, couldn't figure out why they ever break up like they did, and no doubt there was not a dry eye in that audience, for what I remember reading.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, but
yeah,
they both went on to be successful in their own ways.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, Lewis, of course, doing movies like The Nutty Professor and all those classics there. Dean doing his own thing. And plus, you can't not forget Dean's involvement with the Rat Pack. Him,
Right.
Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., I think Peter Lauren, I guess Peter Laundren. What was his last name again? He was
Is it
the
Peter?
Peter, what was his name, dang gummit?
Is it Peter Lorre? No,
Peter
it can't
Lauren.
be.
Peter, someone. Let me look up on the internet who the fourth member of the Rat Pack
Yeah,
was,
because
because
Peter Lorre was a horror film star,
yeah,
so I doubt it was him.
yeah, because we always because when we think about the Rat Pack, we think about Peter Lawford and Joy Bishop.
Lawford, that's it. Yeah,
Yes, yeah. So there was five of them: Sinatra, Martin, Davis Jr., Lawford, and Bishop. You know, because we always think about the main three guys. You know, Sammy, Dean, and Frank.
right.
It was this group of entertainers, the second iteration of which ultimately made movies, appeared together in casino venues. They often organized as a group of A-list show business friends who met casually at the Los Angeles home of both Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. A lot of
Right.
times,
Yeah.
they were like
And
the
then,
big wig. They were like the big wigs of back then. You know.
yeah, they were the it people of that time.
Yes.
Uh, and we also, as a pop musician, had Tony Bennett, who his big song was "I
Oh
Left My
yeah.
Heart in San
Oh
Francisco."
yeah, one of his big ones right there. And many of these are many some of these artists, you know, often recorded for the Columbia Records label. That's where Tony Bennett was signed to, and I think he's still signed to that label to this very day. In fact, he's still moving. He's still going on. Believe it or not, he did an MTV Unplugged, which was highly successful. He did a collaboration album with Lady Gaga.
Huh.
And he also did his tribute to Frank Sinatra called To Be Perfectly Frank.
I find it ironic that Lady Gaga named herself that, and she said it was after the Queen song,
Yes,
which is
Radio
fun.
Gaga from
Which is funny
1984.
because the Queen song "Radio Gaga" was about the crap they play on the radio, and she picked that as her name.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, basically, it was not about the crap on the radio. It was basically about, still holding on to radio as your first music love and let it not be buried by all these MTV music channels like MV3 out of California, Night Tracks, which used to air every weekend night, Friday and Saturday on the TBS station.
Yeah.
And basically it was basically Freddie Mercury saying, "We hope radio's still around when we get sick and tired of watching all these videos."
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, which basically it kind of rings true because MTV no longer plays videos, and we still have radio to help some of the kids of today. And I mean the kids of today because us older folks, we can't. It's hard to somewhat relate to the stuff that's out there right now.
Yeah. It's I don't know. Uh, there's a word for it, but I don't really have a way of saying it.
Yeah,
Uh, then we had Andy Williams, who
yeah,
the big song I remember was well, and roses and roses and roses.
I think it was. Yeah,
Then he had a then he had another big one. Come on,
yeah.
real big in there. Well,
I'm not too really sure keen on no, I'm not too sure about knowing Andy Williams' musical career, but we do remember him well with the Andy Williams show.
oh, can't get used to losing you. That
Ah,
was
yeah,
big, and that's
ah,
a
yeah.
good song. I would
Hmm.
recommend anybody take a listen to that one.
Yes, and we call it, as I mentioned, the Andy Williams show, which takes place in Mayberry, I guess. Along with himself, a very young Ron Howard, who would later
Uh,
grow up to become Richie Cunningham on Happy Days and one of the most respected movie directors, including Splash, um, the movie Solo, the Star Wars movie. He directed that. I was reminded of not too long ago.
Actually, that was Andy Griffith.
Andy Griffith.
Yeah, Andy Williams was only a
Oh
singer.
my gosh,
Oh,
my apologies. I get
and
the
he
two
did have a
mixed up.
variety show. He did have a variety show for a while.
I feel like an idiot now because I got the two mixed up because of the name Andy,
I'm trying to remember if he's the one that was married to. God, can't remember her name, but she was accused of killing the skier Spider Savage.
Spear, what, Spider Savage. You got to run by this story me again because I don't think I recall this story.
Well, Andy Williams, I believe it was married to a woman who left him for this skier Spider
Yeah.
Savage,
Uh huh.
and he died mysteriously, and she was blamed for that. And I
Wow.
cannot remember
I
her
remember,
name.
and now come to think of it, I guess there was it Claudine or something like that.
Oh, that's it. Yeah,
Yes, because I remember
Claudine
reading.
Longet.
Yeah, because I remember there was a song that the Rolling Stones. I remember reading about this back in 1980. That the Rolling Stones had a song about her, and it listed her as his Andy Williams's sharpshooting ex-wife. So that kind of like gave me a little indication of what's going on here. When we think of sharpshooter, we think someone using a gun or something like that. And
Right.
now that I understood the story a lot more, it's like, holy cow, dude. It
Yeah,
kind of makes a lot of sense now.
it's quite a little story to look up sometime if anybody there has time.
Yeah, definitely.
Then you had Sinatra had tons of hits.
Oh, yes.
Uh, he even did one with his daughter called Something Stupid, which was a pretty good song, actually.
Nancy Sinatra. And we cannot forget her one time big hit.
Oh,
These boots are made for walking.
yeah, and we'll get to her in the 60s
Oh,
because
yeah.
actually she had a ton of songs.
Yeah. I mean, the first time I heard of her, my dad had this collection of 4-track cartridges, which was similar to the 8 tracks, but instead of four programs, it was just two, one and two. The
Right.
Beatles, Sergeant Pepper, the Help soundtrack was the two that I listened to a lot. We used to listen to them on our trips down to this spot to this spot there during the winter time in back when we was cruising around Detroit. All these Motown hits, and I remember the one of the covers actually was an album called Sugar by Nancy Sinatra, and she looked
Yeah.
smoking hot in that bikini that she had on the front cover there.
Yeah.
Holy crap, dude! It was like, whoa, dude.
And that's actually a pretty decent song.
Yeah,
I know when I was growing up, my father was a huge country fan, so that's
yeah,
where I got my dose of country,
yes,
is basically from that. But that's also where I got my
yeah,
dislike for country, which is kind of weird because I look back on it now and think, oh, you know what? That's what stuff wasn't
yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
And then you had Pat Boone. What was his big song?
What's it? His cover of Little Richard's Tutti Frutti.
Yeah, and Love Letters in the Sand.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so kind of funny, like years later, Pat Boone is still around. His daughter Debbie will let her have a couple of hits of her own, like "You Light Up My Life," which later became the movie of the same name.
Yeah, and it's one of those songs that people kind of look back and say, "I liked that."
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, those but back then that was the bomb. Back then, years later, I
yeah.
figured, whoa, I actually like that song. Wow, how cheesy, how demented it was. I even like that song.
What is wrong with me?
No,
Of course, one of these days you and I'll get into guilty pleasures,
yeah.
songs we listen to that we don't want people to necessarily know, but we
Otherwise, we'd
actually
be
liked.
embarrassed because back then, because if we did, we admit we liked those songs, we'd be like, "Are you fucking crazy?"
Well, I'm gonna tell you one of them now is I like me some Neil Diamond. I don't know why,
Um,
but I do.
well, you know what's kind of funny because back in the when I was living in Richmond, Michigan, one of the big pleasures during the karaoke night was "Sweet Caroline." Whoa,
Yeah,
oh. And you pretty much and know what I if you know people my age and you know what I mean, you know what I'm speaking of there. People would just
oh,
sing chant along, and when no doubt when Neil Diamond still performed that song, they definitely did that shit
people
there.
still do that,
Yeah,
and it's funny because we covered that song in one of the bands I was in.
yeah,
It's not that difficult, so you know.
yep, exactly.
Well,
It's kind of
that's
funny
one of
that.
the
Go ahead.
that's one of the blessings of rock and roll is a lot of the songs, other than a few artists, are generally pretty easy to play.
Yeah,
Generally, now there are a few that will task you a bit,
yeah,
but they're not impossible.
yeah.
But
That's that's kind of funny, but that you mentioned that is that I mean, going back to Neil Diamond, even though the guy had to retire because I guess he had Parkinson's disease, I understand.
that's what I hear.
Yeah, but well, you got to remember he's also the man who wrote "I'm a Believer" for the Monkees,
Absolutely.
Red Wine," which the UB40, the British youth reggae group, would later cover and make a big hit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We'll get into Neil because I'm kind of thinking he deserves his own half hour or hour.
Absolutely, yeah, he does. Because when you think about it, he has become a iconic figure of coolness later on in the 2000s. I guess
And he had a ton of hits.
yeah, exactly. You know, his duet with Barbara Streisand, "Forever in Blue Jeans," that song he
Yeah.
did for about E.T. Heartlight. He was
Yeah.
like the soft rock, icon that he is. You know.
Yeah. And like I said, I'll be honest with you. I like me some Neil Diamond.
Yeah.
Now, country music,
Hmm.
Johnny Cash. I
Yep.
am a Johnny Cash fan.
Who was it? Who
I
is it nowadays? I mean, when you think about it,
I
he is.
liked him then.
Yeah.
I loved "I Walk the Line." That song to me was great.
My.
Showed his range
Yep.
and showed him what he could accomplish. He
And when you
he had
think,
a terrific vocal range.
yeah, one of the best baritones in music in general, when you think about it.
Yep. And I liked
And a lot of a lot of the subjects of his songs really made a lot of sense. I mean, like "A Boy Named Sue." That song
yeah,
was, yeah, it was kind of funny the way you listen to it, but there was a point in it. The father would name his boy a girl's name, even though because what the purpose was to toughen him up in a tough world out there. He
right.
knows it, but it would make him at least fight back, rather than these emo kids of today being crying in a corner, going to their safe place where they cry because you have a girl's name, blah blah, well. Back then, you tough it out, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had, of course, his one of his early ones was "Folsom Prison Blues." That
Oh
was
yeah,
a
still
biggie.
covered. Yeah, often I remember a lot of when I was back in Richmond, Michigan. There was a place called Chaps Bar and Grill. Almost all the bands, cover bands that would play there on the weekends would often do "Falls of Prison Blues" as one of their cover tunes there.
Yeah. And I liked "Ring of Fire." That was a
Oh
good
yeah,
song.
still that's one of the most iconic songs right there.
Have you ever heard the one in the middle?
"One in the Middle" by Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
I don't think I have. No.
Well, it's the one where the chorus goes. The one in the middle was on the right, and the one in the left was in the middle, or something like that.
Ah,
But
one of
it
those
was
tongue
about a band that
twisters.
well, it was one of the band. It was about a band who's had differing political views and they couldn't get along and all that
Ah,
stuff. But it's kind of a funny little song, actually.
yeah. Kind of like some of these bands here today, that you think about. One member may disagree on this political view, one band disagrees, and next thing you know, we get all these damn conflicting emotions. But the problem is, they often let those conflicts take over the purpose of making music together.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good song if you want to give it a listen
yeah.
sometime. It's. Did you ever hear? Let's see, what 5 feet high and rising?
I heard of that. I
Which,
heard the title. Yes.
yeah, it's the one about how high is the water, Mama? 3 feet high and rising, and then
Yeah.
it's decent.
Yeah.
And then there's well, had it in my head just a second ago, and it
Yeah.
walked away.
And also, we got to keep in mind that often at times, Cash would rap his song lyrics in his songs. When you think about it, I mean, the song "Boy Named Sue," he was actually
Yeah.
rapping during that song. That was way before the Sugar Hill Gang, way before the Last Poets, and way before Curtis Blow. When you think about it, Cash
Oh,
was actually one of the first rappers on some of his songs.
well, actually, there's a lot of musicians as we get into them that
Yeah.
we can point out too, because I can think of at least two others.
Yeah.
Uh,
And we're not talking Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine either. This is way before.
right. And then he, of course, did that song with June Carter,
Oh,
Jackson.
oh yes, I remember hearing that as well. It's kind of funny. When we were going through my dad's record collection, I saw Johnny Cash's Greatest Hits Volume 1 or 2 there. And I don't know what happened to it. It's supposed to have been mine because, at that time, Cash had died, and his cover of Nine Inch Nails' "Hurt" was all over MTV. Was the buzz back then. And when
Yeah.
you think about it, he did a lot of. It took Rick Rubin to bring him out up to the open, bring him back to the public, and make him absolutely cool again. But when you think about it, the style and the persona he projected it back then kind of like was a predecessor for the goth rock crowd when you think about it. I mean, he was the man in black, he wore black a lot of times, and the song "The Man in Black" states the reason why he wore like he was a direct coming about to go to a funeral a lot of times.
Yeah, and he also a lot of his songs told stories. He had several songs that
Absolutely,
told
absolutely.
good
Absolutely.
stories,
Yeah,
actually.
absolutely, man. This man looks like one of the if he was still around and the VH1 channel was going to do a storytellers on him, it would no doubt have to be a 4-hour episode or a four-parter because the man had tons of them. Tons
Oh
of
yeah,
them.
yeah. I know one song he did that had a message in it was the Ballad of Ira Hayes.
Oh yes.
That had
Yes.
a strong
Oh
message in
yeah.
it.
About a killing of a Native American, do I understand?
Yeah, about a Native American that went to war for us,
Yeah.
and when he came back, he was well treated badly.
Yeah, I know.
And basically, that's the song is about his ups and downs.
Yeah, that's where that is a tearjerker out there. Anybody who's been treated bad when he got back from war, especially from the Vietnam War, when you think about it,
Yeah,
because a lot of veterans from that war never really got a hero's welcome, like they did
no,
not they do like they did with the first and second Gulf War. When you think about it, there.
yeah. Well, that was an unpopular war, and a lot of times they didn't want to go either, but they did
Nobody
because
did,
they
but they had no choice.
exactly.
Yeah. And when you think about it, I also remember reading this in the magazine. It would take the celebration from the first Gulf War for everybody to finally pay respect to the Vietnam veterans. I remember that.
Yeah,
And even though half to some of the veterans out there are living on the streets when you think about it with mental conditions.
yeah. Because that's I was in the service, but I never had to go to the war.
Um,
But I can imagine how that would be, and how traumatic it would be to do that.
yeah,
If I had been asked to go, I guess I would have gone because
yeah,
I wasn't dodging anything.
yeah. There was this dude back in the Leo City Club back in Detroit. He was one of the industrial dancers up there. His name was known. He was known as Cowboy Dave because he had this black cowboy hat, something similar to what Lemmy Kilmister used to wear. But he was he went to the. There was a little bit party him because he was going to head off to Iraq, to participate, be part of the second Gulf War there. But it was never clear if he actually went to Iraq. But he was on his home turf a lot of the time doing his duties there with the U.S. Army there. But if he ever did or didn't, we just still don't know. But if he didn't, it was best that he didn't because of all, God knows, he could have came home with PTSD there or some sort of
Right.
other issues that a lot of these veterans would have. Because I remember reading all these times and hearing on these TV programs that a woman who came back from the first Gulf War, whenever she hears the sort of da 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 da, she would duck down and hide because she figured somebody would be shooting at her when it turned out to be some guy working on the rooftop up next door.
Yeah, I had a similar story I was actually going to tell. When I was in the service, I went in as Vietnam was going on,
Yeah.
but by the time I got through with all my training in my technical school, which I was trained in computers,
Yeah.
um, the war ended right at that point.
Hmm.
So it was over, but I was talking to a friend that went there and he worked in the office. And he said even now, if he hears any loud noises or anything at that time, if he heard any loud noises or anything like that, he ducked for cover because that's what they were trained to do.
Yes.
And that's kind of an eerie feeling. I was
I
kind of
know.
like, whoa,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And you know what? Would you agree with me that Vietnam was one of the most fucked up wars we've been involved in?
Yeah, it was done wrong. We had
It
no,
was the most improperly handled wars ever.
yeah, it's one of those things. If you're going to do something like that, do it, get it over with. They just drug it out and played.
Yeah. Yeah, like the second Gulf War. When you think about it, remember Bush 41 when the first one started, he promised that this would not be another Vietnam, which was he was correct on that. It only lasted a couple of months, but with Bush Jr. in office, it did drag out for how many years? It started in 2003, and it just dragged on to what year? I guess to when Obama got into office, if I'm correct.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
And God knows that it did become another Vietnam because when you look at it, all the people protesting, all the references, but the difference was we were praying for our boys and gals overseas there, whereas the anti-war protesters were like condemning them for being over there.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
and just made a lot. And when you think about it, the presidents which by the way were both Republican, Bush and Nixon, really got loads of heat for all that. They got loads of heat from the
yeah.
people out there.
Well, I always thought it was funny. It's called Nixon's War, yet Lyndon Johnson's the one that really carried it on.
Yeah, it's true.
But, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shout out to the veterans out there who both served in all the wars, be it Vietnam, to the two Gulf Wars, World War One and Two, and the Korean War. We give our thank yous, our blessings, our respect to all you guys who have served.
Yep.
Thumbs up to you guys. Here's a toast to you cats out there, men and women.
Well, jumping subjects.
I know, yeah.
um,
But yet,
we,
you cannot say it was a damn
oh,
good
no.
something to talk about. That's for
Oh,
sure.
no. No. No, it's necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we move on to Hank Williams.
Oh yeah, senior Hank Williams Senior was speaking about folks way
Right.
before Hank Williams Jr. and now Hank Williams the third out there. You're
His
cheating hard. I'm so lonesome I could cry. Oh
Jambalaya.
yes,
I mean,
still
he actually has a lot of songs that are still covered today.
yeah.
Uh, then I'm going to mention Conway Twitty because his
Yes,
big song that I really liked was, oh gosh, Glenn Campbell covered it.
yeah.
what's the name of it?
Uh, let's
Only
see
Make
here.
Believe.
Oh yeah.
That was a pretty damn decent song, actually. And the Glenn Campbell version was phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
It showed his vocal range.
Yeah. Didn't he have a bar of his own called in here somewhere here in Texas called Tweeties, I think it was, or Conway's?
That could very well be, but I wouldn't know that
Yeah.
for sure. Uh, but that could very well be.
Yeah. Because remember that ran for a lot of years. I think it also ran for a couple years after his passing, if I'm correct there.
Quite possibly. Yeah. Then we had Patsy Cline, who was
Uh,
basically the queen of early country
yeah,
music.
that's right. Yeah,
She had a lot of good songs.
Crazy being her most notable one.
And then Walking After Midnight.
Yep.
Uh, gosh. She's Got You.
Yep. Yeah.
I
And
wished I had a
also,
list in front of me because
yeah,
she had a lot of
and
hits.
also keep in mind that she's one of the very other reasons why musicians are often reluctant to fly in planes nowadays, along with Jim
Yep.
Croce, the members of Leonard Skinner, John Denver, Ricky
Buddy Holly,
Nelson, yeah, Buddy Holly, yes, definitely,
Big Bopper,
the Big
Otis
Bopper,
Redding.
yep, and of course, oh yeah, J.P. Richardson, the Big Bopper, Richie Valens, yes, as well,
Yeah, it's man.
yeah, so
Then we then we move on to rhythm and blues.
yeah,
We got Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers. They
oh
did
yeah,
the one I remember was Stay.
yep. And of course, Why Do Fools Fall in Love, which Diana Ross would later cover.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the 1980s, if I remember.
And then Jackson Brown covered Stay.
Yes, I remember that's still played today on this radio there. When you think about it,
And actually, one of the groups I was in, we did that song as our closing song.
that's right. Yeah. And didn't Lyman have some sort of issues later on in his life? I guess with drug addiction, from what I recall.
I believe so. I
Yeah.
believe so.
Yeah, man. I guess what was it? He started out as a teenager, and all the pressures of fame got to him, so he looked at drugs as a way to keep himself going there, if I understand.
Yeah, yeah. Then you got Sam Cooke.
Yeah. Who,
Oh, he had some great stuff.
great song, like Cupid, and I guess, which I guess the Spinners would cover later on in their career.
So would Johnny Rivers.
Oh, yeah. And Johnny Rivers, we never mentioned Johnny, no, hardly anybody mentions Johnny Rivers. We got to
Yeah.
bring this cat up because he had some damn good songs, like
Oh,
"Poor Side of Town," his
we'll cover
iconic.
that guy.
Oh yeah, and
We
plus,
will cover him.
absolutely, Secret Agent Man.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we got to cover this guy because he had some good stuff there.
He did a lot of covers, but
Yeah, and
he
originals
did a
as
good job
well.
some. Yep.
Yeah.
But Sam Cooke also, his biggie that I remember was You Send Me.
Oh yeah, which Steve Miller from the Steve Miller band they did on "Fly Like a Eagle" that album.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Then you got Ray Charles.
don't know much.
Man, that guy was good.
Don't know much about history. Don't know much about what was the name
Oh,
of that one?
Wonderful World.
Wonderful
Wonderful
World.
World.
Hell yeah. He came up with some great stuff there. Twisting the Night Away, which
Yeah.
I guess Rod Stewart covered, I guess. Oh yeah. What was it? The Isley
Wonderful
Brothers?
World.
I
Wonderful World was covered by the Herman's Hermits.
Oh yeah. And I guess who did Twisting the Night Away? I think it was Rod Stewart later on,
Yeah.
if I'm correct. Yes. Oh yes, we cannot forget the old Isley brothers, the younger
Right.
Isley brothers, which I guess which wasn't he in the later 50's or the 60's? I guess because I remember.
I think they were early 60s, but I could be wrong.
I mean, maybe so. I don't know, but I'm trying to think of the name of that song that Ronald Isley would later redo with Rod Stewart years later on in '91, I guess it was. Um, what the fuck is the name of that song? Son of a bitch! I remembered
There
it so well.
there's so many tunes out there, it's hard to remember all of
Twist
them.
and
It's
Shout.
just,
Yeah, oh yeah, Twist and Shout, which the Beatles gave praise to later in their career.
yeah.
That's right.
Let's
Yep.
see. Ray Charles, like I said, kind of dabbled in country a little bit.
Yeah.
He did "Crying Time," which was a Buck Owens song.
Yes.
Uh,
Georgia.
Georgia, "Hit the Road, Jack."
Yep.
I mean, he had some good material out there.
Yeah.
And of course, Fats Domino's famous for the song he did that Richie
Blueberry Hill.
Cunningham loved. Yes,
I
that Richie
love.
Cunningham
Oh yeah,
loved.
I found my thrill all the time. Richie Cunningham, used to do that on the show Happy Days a lot of times during
Yeah,
that run. No doubt, people who hear him do that would figure, let's figure out what song he was singing there, and they find out. Next thing you know, more royalties in Fats Dynamo's pocket there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Platters, they did "Smoke Gets in Your Eyes."
Yes. Hmm.
Uh, there were others, but I really should have wrote some of these down and gone did huge research, and I
Yeah.
didn't really get into it, I guess.
I remember. Yes.
Then we got James Brown, who
Oh
actually
yeah.
a lot of his bigger songs were in the '60s,
Yep.
but he
And the
had some in the
'70s.
'50s
Yeah.
too.
Yes. I feel good was in the '60s, if I remember. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, and that was probably his biggest. The thing I remember
Still
about him
played
was him
today.
doing what was that song he used to do that he would go off the stage, then guy would put the coat on him,
Yes, I
and
remember.
then
There
he'd
was some
throw the
here.
coat
Go
off.
back, go right back to the stage, and Roddy be like, "No, no, come on, James, calm down, calm down, calm down, calm down." And I remember seeing that as a kid. I was wondering, what the heck is this guy's problem? Is he having a spazzo, and that guy's trying to calm him down and all that stuff? But they like, no, I gotta go back to the mic. I was wondering what that whole gimmick was about.
Well, as a kid, I thought that was pretty neat. I don't know why,
Wow.
but I did.
It
I thought,
does, yeah. And,
wow,
and
that's
later be
cool.
and will they be spoofed by the Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees when they did their tour back in '60s there, up in the
Yeah,
times. Oh yeah. And we of course had forgets the Ed Sullivan Show. Did that debut in the later '50s, if I'm correct, or now?
I think it was the late '50s, something like that. But it's a variety show, and he would
Yes.
occasionally feature recording artists.
Hmm.
Because I remember that's where I first saw the Beatles.
Yeah, that's probably Sarah. Yeah, it actually ran from a lot longer than that. It started in June 1948 to about June 1971. And for I understand, the show was it was going to nobody really, according to George Carlin during one of his skits. I remember what happened in one of his albums, AM FM. They discussed this. Nobody really never had a chance to thank Ed Sullivan for all the good stuff that he provided on his
Yeah,
program, including the Beatles and others. Like
that was a good routine.
yeah,
Routine.
yeah. And when you think, because it was supposed to take a small break at that time, and Ed Sullivan just passed away unexpectedly. When you think about it,
Yeah,
so we
yeah,
never really had a chance to really thank Ed Sullivan for all those acts that he had on his program, including all those music artists like the Fifth Dimension, the Mamas and the Papas, all the I guess I think it was a John Biner, I think it was, if I'm correct, or the later who started that Showtime comedy show Bizarre, if
yeah,
I'm correct. Uh,
yeah. I actually have most of those on DVD. I love that show.
Elvis Presley as well, and we all know had to be
Rolling
filmed.
Stones.
Yep, filmed from the waist up. Elvis Presley was because of his
Yeah,
pelvis swing. It was kind of considered back then taboo for American to viewing audiences.
and the Doors were on there.
Oh yeah, we all know the story
That
about
is,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, for those who didn't know, when they did "Light My Fire" on that program, they were asked, instead of singing, "Girl, could we get much higher?" They had to change that lyric because it was referring to it was basically a drug reference that they were afraid of that song, that word being. So, and they figured, what's wrong with doing that? fuck it, let's keep it in the song. Let's do it either way. And when they did that song, they were of course told not to ever come back. The executives like, you promised that you would never say the word higher in that song. You promised. And lo and behold, that was their only appearance on that program.
Yeah,
Still,
yeah.
still
And
talked
then
about.
the Stones, when they were on there, they had a song called "Let's Spend the Night Together."
And they had, and of course, they had to change it to "Let's spend some time together."
Right. And as they're singing it, they're rolling their eyes like, "Oh man!" But they did it. You
Yeah,
know, they
but they
did what
had
they
to
were
do
told
it. Yeah.
to.
And of course, we cannot forget when the Beatles debuted on that show. Every other kid out there who was watching that, they decided, yep, that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when we get to the '60s, we'll discuss them big
And
time.
it's safe to say that because of the Beatles appearing on that show, um, the sales of electric guitars definitely went through the roof.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, they. Yeah, that was quite a time,
Yeah.
and I can honestly say I saw that when it happened.
Yep. I guess it's kind of funny there. Remember reading a point that instead of the Beatles, it was Elvis Presley on Ed Sullivan that inspired Sammy Hagar to get into the music business as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because that was quite a performance too.
Oh yeah, the Animals was on there as well, doing House of the
Yep.
Rising Sun. Got to give it to that Eric Burden and the boys.
Yeah, yeah. We'll spend a little time on them too, actually, because I
Definitely,
that was a
absolutely.
big group for me.
Yeah, we should probably do what on our next episode, probably this Thursday. Look at the British invasion and all the bands that came from there. I say we
Well,
do a devil. Yeah, go ahead.
actually, the next one we need to do '50s rock and roll,
Yeah, that'll be a
then move
possibly.
on to that.
Yeah, probably this Thursday. I'm thinking we could
Yeah,
probably do that.
yeah. But here's some of the big songs in 1950. I got
Hmm.
a little list here.
Yeah.
Sentimental Me by the Ames Brothers,
Ah.
Mona Lisa by Nat King Cole, All My Love by Patti Page,
Oh yeah.
I Want to Be Loved, Andrews Sisters,
Hmm.
then
Correct.
Music, Music, Music by Teresa Brewer.
Yes.
I'm only mildly familiar with those five songs, but they were big for the 1950.
Yes.
1951, there was If by Perry Como, High High the Moon by Les Paul, Unforgettable, Nat King Cole,
Yes.
Because of You, Tony Bennett, Be My Love by Mario Lanza.
Yes. Definitely.
And now, we haven't hit any names a lot of people are going to know, but you and I know them.
Yes.
Uh,
I know them because of both my mom and dad's record collection. My mom had a bunch of vintage, vinyl 45's, which was given to me not too long ago by my sister, and my dad's collection of albums was staggering. He had Johnny Cash, he had Count Basie, he had J.J. Johnson, the jazz trombone player. He had records by a drummer named Sandy Nelson, Let There Be Drums. You may remember that
yep,
classic there.
yep. I would have loved to gone through that collection.
Yes, definitely. When I look at those, he also had. I remember I mentioned about this. It was, I think it was a three-record set titled "Farewell" by Diana Ross and the Supremes. It was her farewell concert before departing as a solo act. The Supremes will later go on with a new singer that's in her place and release a couple other records there
Yeah, but those
hereafter.
didn't do anything.
I know, yeah.
1952, we had You Belong to Me, Joe Stafford.
Oh, yeah.
Here in My Heart, Al Martino.
Yes.
Heart and Soul by the Four Aces. I remember that one.
Yeah,
A guy is
can I interrupt for a second? You
sure.
belong to me. Is that the one I'm thinking of?
I think so. Yeah.
Because I remember Carly Simon covered that song in the 1970s, and then Anita Baker, Detroit's own, covered that for one of her earlier records. And it was the first record, Raptured, if I'm correct.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Doris Day did one called "A Guy Is a Guy,"
Uh-huh.
and Percy Faith did "Delicado."
Yes,
Big
that's
one I
what.
remember by Percy Faith was "Theme from a Summer Place."
Oh yeah, that's I remember that one as well. You just brought that back into my mind with come to think of it.
Yeah, I think that was actually released in the '60s,
Hmm.
but that was a nice little song, I thought.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah.
Then in '53,
Yeah.
that's when we had "You're Cheating Hard."
Yeah.
That's "Amore" by Dean Martin. That was a big song.
Yes.
"Vaya con Dios" by Les Paul and Mary Ford.
Oh yeah. And what did he let's not forget the praise the toast to Les Paul for being the pioneers of the electric guitar. Let's not forget that, folks.
No, then Eddie Fisher had one called "I'm Walking." Excuse me,
Go
"I'm
ahead.
Walking Behind You."
Yeah.
And then the Orioles released "Crane in the Chapel." I don't know if that's the same one Elvis
Hmm.
covered or not.
Yeah.
I actually was unfamiliar with that song until I saw it on a list. I was like, "Whoa, I didn't know that song." In 1954, Doris Day had "Secret Love."
Hmm.
The Chordettes had one called "Mr. Sandman," which I'm sure you remember that one.
Yep.
You know, "Mr. Sandman, Bring Me a Drink."
Oh yeah. Who doesn't?
Eddie Fisher had one called "I Need You Now."
Yep.
"Shaboom" by the Crew Cuts.
Oh yeah, I think that was considered one of the first rock and roll songs out there, if I'm correct. Because I remember reading about that in a book called "The Revolution of Rock" when I was in junior high from the library
Right.
there.
Yeah. And then Rosemary Clooney did "Hey There."
Yes.
Now,
Which
after this time,
and keep in mind, Rosemary Clooney is related to actor George Clooney. For those not in the known.
right.
Hmm.
And now when we get to 55, we're going to do mostly rock and roll. So I'm going to
Yep.
skip
Hmm.
that for now. And we'll go
Hmm.
into those
Yes.
when we cover rock and roll.
Yes.
Because almost everything I see on this list is rock and roll
Yes.
from 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, with
Yes.
only a few exceptions.
Hmm.
Uh, Frank Sinatra shows up with "Love and Marriage."
Yep.
Oh, let's see. Wow. Oh, Harry Belafonte with "Banana Boat Song."
Yes. Oh yeah. Of course, we cannot forget his other signature song "Day," which became a big hit thanks to that Beetlejuice movie directed by Tim Burton.
Right,
Yep.
right. Yeah, a lot of this stuff that we're talking about is going to show up.
Yes.
Because contrary to what most people seem to believe, all this early music influenced what you're hearing to some degree now.
Yeah.
Although now it seems like they're off on their own little path
Yeah.
that to me doesn't really even resemble music. But again, to hear some folks talk, that's just an old guy.
Yeah.
No,
But then again, when you think about it, you remember the hip hop doo wop scene in the early '90s with the groups like Color Me Bad.
right,
Yeah, and it's to say that groups like Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers, and of course, the Four Tops, the Temptations, they played a big part in all these well, either these boy bands or these R&B boy groups out there, men group singers out there, like Boys to Men. They often also played a part with the back in part of the Backstreet Boys, NSYNCs, all these other boy bands. They kind of like had a big influence. New Kids on the Block, when you think about it, even though it's just some of the stuff that the New Kids on the Block were kind of like taking on the 60s and 1970s. They were influenced by, of course, thanks to their manager and producer Maurice Starr, the general there, as he was often nicknamed because he would wear a general suit when he would appear in interviews and on stage, to congratulate them. It's blah, 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 give them hugs and shit there. He was often, he took some of those influences, like the groups I mentioned, and he would infiltrate them into the New Kids music scene there, but just a lot more updated.
Yeah, and a lot of times they didn't even realize it at the time.
Yeah, until years later, I figure I got, oh wow, we didn't realize that. Wow, that's a trip, man. It's kind of funny, iconic when you think about what you're interpreting until years later on down the line, you know.
Right.
But a lot of these groups, that we mentioned there, do deserve their props and recognition for the some of the stuff that we have out there today. It's
Yeah, because
just,
believe it or not, they influence people even though they may not realize it.
yeah,
They got influenced.
yeah. And another group, I think we got to, I guess, now we'll say that because that was mostly in the 60s. I was going to mention, because they were not a singing group, they did play instruments. I'm speaking of course, Ronnie Dio and the Prophets, you know.
Right. Right.
And yeah, because they had some great songs out there, including this great cover of "Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow," and of course, Rodney Dio, of course, being the man on the Silver Mountain himself. Rest in peace.
Right.
Yeah, of course, we got to cover so discuss that when we get to our '60s review there pretty soon.
Yeah,
There,
we'll get into that. And there's actually a couple of 50s artists I'd like to kind of give their own little thing to.
yes,
Elvis being one of them.
yes, Bill Haley and
Uh,
the Comets.
I don't know if we want to devote an hour to them.
Yeah, but definitely, we do. But we should probably mention them probably next on our next installment. I guess will be this Thursday, if I'm correcting there.
Yeah, if we don't
Definitely.
run into problems.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we seem to be doing pretty good for this evening there. Thank goodness, unlike what happened last night, man.
Oh, yeah, that was strange.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
but apparently all things are fixed and we're going fine because nobody's saying, "Hey, I can't hear you."
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, it was my OBS messing up that night. And to all the guys out there that tried to tune in last night, yeah, my apologies for all that. My OBS often screws up a lot of times. Last night I was trying to record something on it. It was a little soundscape there piece, and it was the Google was not responding, such and such here. So I don't know what the fuck was up with that, man.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
I know, but I'm glad it's fixed right now there. So,
Yeah, yeah, everything seems to be working good.
yep,
And one thing, if anybody's gotten this far into this, I'd like to encourage. I still have 0 subscribers.
yep.
Please subscribe to the Only a Stroke Bean channel.
Yes, please
Someday
do.
I'm going to do some other things besides what we're doing here,
Yeah,
and I'm just kind of trying to fixate on what I want to do there,
yeah,
not interfere with what we're doing here.
correct. Stuff that we want that kind of like what I do with my channel. Thoughts and opinions I want to express on a separate video here or there. Something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah, yeah, but definitely give Arknolia here a few subs there. He just started his channel and he's looking to gain some recognition within this community.
it would be nice.
Yes, definitely. So I urge everybody listening here to give a few likes and hit that subscription word there if you know what I'm talking about. I was going to say subscription bottle, but you know what I'm speaking of. Sub to this dude's channel, ladies and gentlemen. That's all we ask. Definitely. Hi.
Okay, now
Hmm.
I think we covered kind of pretty much. We didn't really get into folk, but
Yeah. But I
there was
think
not a lot of folk at that time.
no, that
There
would
was
come later.
some, but
That would come later on in early part of the around the 60, 61, 62 with the Smothers Brothers, the Kingston Trio. I remember my dad had one of their records sing along with the Kingston Trio with
yeah,
Tom Dooley, Batman's Blumber, I think Blunder, I think it's called there, and a couple right here. If I Had a Girl,
yeah.
I'm kind of looking at some
But
of that.
let's kind of tell people what our plans are. Tomorrow night we're going to
Yeah,
try to get into Star Trek the original series
yeah.
and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so unlike what happened the last time, we tried that before there.
And then Thursday we'll go into the 50s rock and roll
Yes,
and
definitely.
basically talk about that a little bit,
Yep.
what was going on, which actually that started late 54, early 55.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of get into that and kind of the groundwork for what's to come.
Yes.
And
Like,
then Friday, we're going to try yet again
hmm
to cover Plan 9 from Outer Space
yeah, the
and
movie.
our movie show.
Yes, definitely.
And if y'all want to look at something and go, what the heck? It's all over YouTube.
Yep.
From the opening monologue from Dr. Criswell on, you're going to sit there and rapt amusement at what's going on and say to yourself, this got released in theaters?
Yep.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, sadly, surely. Yep. Definitely got to cover that. We've been trying to do that for a long while there. All right, so definitely we'll look into those things up there pretty much there.
And we'll start on at 6 o'clock on Wednesday,
Yep.
5 o'clock on Thursday,
Yep.
6 o'clock on Friday
Yep.
Central Time.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, that's correct. So be able to look out for everybody out there. Definitely check it out, folks.
And we look forward to seeing everybody again, hopefully.
Yep. All right. All right there. Hold up there. I'm just going to take up this here. Son the name go. I'm looking. As soon as you mentioned that, we were going to do this. Yeah, I'll explain it later on. I'm kind of like a tongue tied. I got to stop speaking for a while, or else I might say the wrong thing when I shouldn't be. All right. So for myself, Arknolia, this is Dr. Earl W. Brown. Check it out tomorrow night. Um, our Star Trek, the original series, our look on that classic program. And for myself, once again, everybody have a good one, okay?
And we'll see you tomorrow night,
All
hopefully.
right, same time, same stations. Okay? Bye bye.
Bye now.
Wow. Okay. All right, pretty decent episode with no problems whatsoever.